We are recording.
Excellent. Well, good morning. Um, we've got a lot to go over, but I wanted to start off by saying, folks, I appreciate you hanging in there while we got some business dealt with. We're going to be redoing these meetings just a little bit so that they're a little bit more streamlined and more palatable for everybody. We don't want to have to keep running koha-US business during these general meetings. We want this to be more beneficial to everybody in general. So pretty much the only business that we're going to do during these general meetings, from time to time we'll have a financial report from John, and he'll do those. Did you decide you were going to do those quarterly?
Yeah, I'll do those quarterly. Okay. February, May, August, and November. Basically, the 2 months after the previous quarter ends, which is when everything will be finalized for the previous quarter.
Okay. And, when we do things like this, we're going to send out information ahead of time so that people can have a chance to look it over. And we're just going to do a cursory overview and not consume a lot of time with all of it. It gives us a chance to talk about something of question on it, but otherwise, we're trying to keep things down to a minimum so that we can do something that we can all participate in. We'll also have elections from now and then for members, but other than that, we are going to be focusing back on the things that we had dealt with prior to all the officer changes and business had to be dealt with. We are also going to be opening up the board meetings to anyone that wants to listen in and find out what we're talking about and be a part of the pulse of the behind the scenes. But so it's not closed off to the boards, and we'll let people know, but generally that's like the week before these general meetings. So if you're interested in sitting in and listening to all the glorious fun discussions that we have, then feel free. Otherwise, that's my announcement. There's a couple other, let's see here, election results. Jason, why don't you talk about election results?
Okay, so we needed to post election results for the financial institution move. They needed to see that we actually voted the current board in, and it had to be published somewhere. We didn't take notes during the Coeur d'Alene meeting, so we've kind of gone back from our collective memories and just recorded the results and posted those as the business meeting minutes from Coeur d'Alene. We wanted to just let everybody know that we'd done that. We wanted to let you guys look over that and make sure that there aren't any, for those who attended, anything shady or going on there. The vote was basically unanimous on all accounts, so there's nothing bad. But we did have to get it posted there. So I posted the link to those minutes in there. And if you guys want to talk about that, we can. Otherwise, they're just there so that we can move forward with the financial institution move. And we'll make sure and get real minutes at this next time we do that.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other comments or announcements before we move on? All right, before we go to open discussion, let's talk real quick about, since it's not on the agenda, before I forget, let's talk about the website and let's talk about membership, because we need to get those things underway as soon as possible. So, Michael, can you tell us where we are with the website?
Yeah, okay. So right now, at this point, I've moved almost every piece of content from the koha-US wiki onto the website. it's basically ready to go. The the only things I haven't put on the website are there was like an older conference or content, and there's a few like SQL report stuff that was like a list of SQL reports. That's the only two things I need to move over at this point.
Okay.
So and also so once that's finished, which shouldn't take very long, the site should be ready. I do have a idea for how we could host it and also have it set up and things like that. But I could talk about that briefly now or just talk about it offline with you and Fred. But in general, it's ready to go. I would imagine that it'd be ready by like next week.
Okay.
We just have to figure out. I have some forms on there set up for membership, but I know you guys have some Google forms. I could just link out to those forms as opposed to having mine on the site because you already have those set up. That'd be fine. I just need to, like, if that's what you want to do, I'll just set links to those or try to embed the form onto the page. But
I think we'll have the board take a look at that and see which is the better option in their opinion, and we'll make a decision then.
Yeah, and I'll put the link on the chat so people can look because I added new content. So let me just do that. But yeah, that's where it's at. I would say by next week we will have it all finished. It's just at that point a matter of putting it up, then using the domain name that we have so that can be the website address, and then we should be good to go.
Great.
Like finalizing stuff.
So yeah, let's talk about that form after the meeting at some point. Sometime this week, and get that finalized. And when we are ready to move it over, and when it's moved, we can send out a general announcement to the list and let everybody know. And at that time, we're gonna plan to have membership open. So we will start having enrollment available for people to enroll for the year. Remember the annual fee for membership is $25, and we have listed on the where did we list the benefits of the membership? It was in the bylaws.
Yes, we added those to the bylaws.
Okay, so I won't rehash all of that. Any other comments about the website?
Yeah, I would just say it'd be great to have some FaceTime with you and Fred at some point in next week to kind of go over both the form stuff. And I want to show you a method of hosting that I think would work for us. So I just want to go over that quickly. So maybe if we could set up a time to meet the next week or so, I think that'd be good.
Okay.
Does anyone have information about the Erie conference? Didn't see anything on the web about it.
What kind of information are you looking for?
Agenda, recap, photos, some sort of.
I don't think we were all that together with that kind of stuff. It was just personal things that people put out there at the time. So I don't know that we were officially collecting anything.
Okay.
If we're done with that, I wanted to point out that Ben posted something in chat over here. I guess maybe he doesn't have a microphone today. He said, do the updated minutes need to be approved by a vote? We were talking about the updated minutes from the conference, the election minutes.
Well, that's something we can discuss. Generally, we don't have to vote in our minutes. It's something that we talked about in the last meeting that we're not necessarily doing. If there are any questions about the minutes, we'll certainly you can certainly let us know, and we can update anything that may be incorrect. Discussion. No discussion.
I'm keeping an eye on the chat window to see if Ben says anything. And I don't see anything going on over there, so.
Okay. John just posted something in the chat. John, can you elaborate a little bit?
I think John's sending his chat just to you because I don't see it.
Okay, I see.
One of the things that we talked about as a board, and Michael, this will be something that will need to be addressed on the website. The official form of the organization's name is KOHA, all in lowercase, -US without any periods, like is reflected in the graphic. And when referring to the software specifically, it's KOHA, all in lowercase. That's a matter of branding that I sent a message to the board about way back. I think it was after our December board meeting. And we want to make sure we represent everything uniformly across all of our various interfaces using, and I think it was in the October meeting, it might not have been the general meeting, it might have been the board meeting, in which we decided that the official form would be KOHA, all in lowercase, -US without periods. That's where the origin of the graphic came from. The graphic originally, when it was first designed, however many months ago, maybe even years, did not have the dash. The dash has been added, and we've got a number of different sized logos that are actually on the current wiki that have the dash in there. And that's one thing we had discussed, and we want to make sure that that is consistent across any interface where we have control over that display.
Sure, I will.
I agree with John. We need to be consistent in our branding.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll go through and find every instance of koha-US and make sure it's in the form that you talked about. And yeah, and then when I send it out, I'll update it. Someone could just like, Brad could spot check me, make sure I haven't like missed anything since he's my partner in this. Then we should be in good shape.
I'm noticing on the. So we need to get the official information for koha-US at the bottom of the home page.
That's the other thing. Yeah, I need to get from you all. I forgot to say that. I need to get the address that you want on it on the footer, the email address where people can contact, and if there's any social media links you want them to go at, I can put that on there too.
Do we want just the list address on there, or do we want it to go to the officers, or what email address do we want on this this page, guys?
Maybe we should consider creating just a separate membership address, because if something gets sent to officers, it's possible that multiple people will respond to a message with different pieces of information or with conflicting pieces of information. And if we perhaps develop just a membership at koha-US and have that go to a single person, then that would help alleviate that type of condition.
Sounds good, but I'd make it a little broader, something like info@koha.us.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Or koha-US.org, rather.
So, George, would you mind setting that up and I guess pointed at me for the time being?
Yeah, I just wrote something down on my notebook to remember to do that.
Okay. And for the address, John, can you send Michael your address information? We'll have all that go to you.
I will take care of that. I'll send Michael a message right now through the chat window.
Okay. I just don't want there to be several addresses hanging out there, and since your address is one for that payment goes to, it would be.
That makes sense to have it as the general address. Yes, I agree.
Okay, great. All right. Let me get back to my notes here. I can find them. Michael, thank you very much for all the work on the website. It's looking fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Let's move on here. George, do you have anything about the listserv that you wanted to mention before we do open discussion?
By the end of the week, I'll have everybody moved over to the new list. I've had a lot of things going on here, so I haven't made any progress on that still, but I'm gonna make sure that gets done by the end of the week.
Great. All right, let's go to open discussion, folks. Bugs and issues. And if you have something that you want to throw in the ring, I would suggest let's throw that in the chat window, and we can bring it up as they come up in the chat. But find my chat window again here.
There's a couple of people here that I don't recognize their names. Amanda said hello at the beginning of the meeting, and she's new, and I've already scrolled past where she said she was from. Naropa University. I have no idea where that is. And I don't recognize, there's another name over here, Tam. And there was somebody else a minute or two ago that I didn't recognize either the name. Naropa is in Boulder, Colorado. Okay. Amanda apparently doesn't have a microphone, so. But I don't know who Tam is or where they're from. Does anybody else know Tam or?
First time here from Albright College.
Albright College, Pennsylvania. Hello, welcome.
Excellent. Anyone else that is new here? Let's see here. With all these first names, sometimes it's hard to keep track if it's somebody that we've seen before or not.
Who's Rachel?
Rachel, have you been here before?
And if you do have a microphone, down in the left-hand corner of the screen, if you want to talk, there's a mute, unmute button.
Idaho State Archives. I can listen, but not.
Oh, Idaho people.
She was at the last meeting. Hey,
oh, okay.
What are you saying about Idaho people? You were one of us. All right. Well,
says the Idahoan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he escaped.
Idahoans here.
I managed to escape. I got free.
Well, those of you that are new, welcome. We are glad to have you here and hope to have you back. And if you have anything to say, just chime in. We'll keep an eye on the chat window. All right. So we're gonna go back to our discussion about bugs or issues. Since let's see here, Vicky is posted. Is anyone else having billing issues or notices are not being sent out? Has anybody seen anything like that? No response yet. Vicky, are you? Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? And I know you have a mic.
Yeah, I'm not seeing what Vicky typed because I think she just sent it to you instead of everyone.
Well, no, I did say to everybody, but what the we thought it might be related to the upgrade, but Tanya has gone back and looked, and it started the 1st of December. The notices are being generated, but they're not being sent.
It could be a cron job issue. Have you checked with, are you supported by Bywater?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you may want to check with them if something happened with your cron job.
Okay, because as we gave them a list of specific patrons that, excuse me, have had the issue.
It could also be, I don't have any evidence that this is the case, but it could also be that something is in there that's causing it to barf and not work. So I would definitely check with them. I haven't seen anything myself.
Okay.
What version are you on?
17.5. That's what I thought immediately, that it was related to the upgrade, but we upgraded on the 9th of December, and this traces back to the 1st of December, so it wasn't the upgrade.
Okay. So you know that they're being generated because you're seeing them in the patron notices?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Vicky, how have you known? Have patrons been telling you they haven't been receiving?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They're not. We don't have fines or anything. We send out 2 notices after, excuse me, the books are overdue for 30 days, and then they get a bill. And the bills are not going to people. So they come in to try and check out a book, and they're blocked. And it's, well, no, that's the problem. They're not being blocked because the notices are failing. So they're still able to use self-check and everything when they should. Oh, here we go. Somebody pointed out a bug. Oh, or is that may be another issue? So yeah, I'm not sure, but like I said, I think Nick is working on it. Because we had sent him a list of patrons that we had specifically identified as having the problem.
Okay.
So I just didn't know if anybody else was seeing it. So
We haven't had a problem that matches what you're describing.
Yeah.
okay.
So
I had another issue where we changed some things with how often our process mail cron job was running. It had been set really long. It was only running every hour, and we asked to move it up to every 15 minutes. And there were some historical reasons why it was running every hour, but I wanted to go in and run a report that showed me when messages were sent versus when they were created. And I found that I couldn't do that because there's only one date field. There's only one time date field in the message queue. And so I asked today if we could see about adding some more data into that table for the message queue so that we can differentiate when messages are created with when they're actually sent. That's not going to help Vicky with her problem, but that's something that I think would be useful in the future to be able to pin down these kinds of problems, because right now the field in the database is just called time queued, but it's really just a time stamp. There's no differentiation. It just gets updated whenever anything happens to that message. So
Okay, that would be a good idea to be able to identify times.
yeah.
You know, it would also be nice is if we, I'm looking at the notices in a patron account. It would sure be nice. This is just a thought that came up. It would be nice if we could see when it says that it emailed. It would be nice to see the address that it emailed to, because sometimes when it says failed, you don't know, what address it sent to.
Yeah.
And people go in and change account or update their account and change their email address or whatever. And so, in tracking down things, it would sure be nice to be able to see, oh, well, they had a bad email address at that time. That's why it failed.
Yeah.
This is probably impractical for anyone but a really small library, but you can send a BCC to another address.
Yeah.
We did that for a while on our old system.
Which we send out maybe 5 to 10 messages a day.
We sent out a lot more than that, but
I was going to say I sent out a lot more than that too, Tricia.
but I still had one going to a special Google account, and it would just monitor it, and it would allow us to track down whether or not, when a patron complained that they didn't get messages, you could say, yeah, it was really sent, and it would show to what email had been sent to.
I can't remember. Is it possible to set the reply to address so everything that bounces can go to a special account?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I know we've done that, yeah.
Yeah, we have ours set to come back to the
Right.
library's generic email, and that way the circulation supervisor can monitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do for bounce backs. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Vicki, I know that none of this answered your question, but hopefully.
Well, I'll talk to Nick about looking at the cron job too to see if that might have an effect on it. So,
does anybody know, if different question, but dates reminded me, does anybody know if there's been any bug or development suggested for tracking exactly when an item moves to first availability?
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Okay, so right now our materials are set to be on order and then in processing, and once they leave in processing, they go down and get checked in, and that first availability date is technically, I suppose, the first time it's returned as it gets checked in. It would be nice if there were a more stable date, because I've been trying to run reports against that statistic return thing.
Have you looked in the modification log?
The modification logs, yeah, that's not, they're only kept for so long anyway. I need a stable date on, really on the bib record, or not, because items change. I'm still working through what would I, before I turn in a ticket, what I would like to see.
We're contemplating a development on just item status changes.
That could be interesting, yeah. Yeah.
In a log.
Yeah.
There was put in not for loan, whether it was on order or whatever.
Right.
Because that tells us a lot about where an item went.
Yeah, also it would be good for tracking how long items stay in certain categories, so you can determine, you know, your turnaround times,
right?
Ordering and processing. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, I think one of the other uses was that for being able to put out a list of new materials to patrons, because it's, you know, it doesn't help necessarily to send out a list saying, oh, this is new in the library. Well, it was newly ordered. It doesn't mean it's newly on the shelf. That was
so you can't use ascension date for that then?
Well, no, because our items are created before they leave processing and whatnot. It doesn't mean that they're available to the patron.
Yeah, that's what you're really talking about, is tracking when something leaves processing, not when it's added to the collection, but when it actually hits the shelf the first time.
Yeah. Exactly. Nobody's brought that up before. I'm still trying to think through it, and I don't have a whole lot of time before.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky thing to. I think it'll be a tricky thing to figure out how to write a report or how to create something that does that, because the workflow, it's going to depend a lot on the workflow at your library, which is probably a lot different than the workflow in any other library, because the way different libraries handle ordering and getting things onto the shelf can vary so wildly from place to place. But probably whatever solution you come up with is probably going to be unique for your situation.
Yeah, right now I don't know how other people are handling it, but it can't be checked out, or it doesn't go onto the shelf until it is actually checked in for the first time.
Right.
Yep.
That's the date I've been trying to work with, and I'm just having problems with it. I threw it to Bywater and figured.
We allow holds on order items so people can get on a list before they come in, and that way when they're checked in, they're ready. You know, they go right on the hold shelf for the person.
We do that too, but it's there are other reasons that we're
Right.
working through when it actually becomes available for a patron.
Yeah, we have a shelf location for new, and when an item gets its sticker, we also put the month
In the item
that it came in
record.
or not. We'll put an 8 on it, and then what we just sort of check those things as they come in and see, well, is this ready to be taken out of new? And then we take the sticker off and move it to its regular shelf location. So that gives us a rough idea of what we have that's new, because we can run a report by shelf location.
So you put that
But
information.
it's not perfect.
Benjamin, you put that information in the item record. So.
No. This is actually something we write on the spine itself.
Yeah, but
Oh yeah, we do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just gives the CERC staff an idea of when this came in, and then they manually take it out of new when it's ready.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't do any good for writing reports.
Right.
Yeah, you need a report
Sounds like
that
it
tells you what the
If
date
you
on
have a
the
shelf
spine
location
is.
for new, Ron, if you have a shelf location for new, then you can say, give me everything that's in new. And if you're taking things out of new manually, there is a little bit of work, but at least you have, this is a list of things that's in the new shelf location.
Yeah, we have a report that we try and run so that the person who handles that knows to go change them. So
Right.
that's another reason why that availability date would be better than an accession date.
So there's nothing in. Do you use acquisitions at all?
Yeah, but that doesn't tell it when it's available to the patron.
So there's nothing in the process where in acquisitions.
No.
When you receive it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's out and available yet.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Yeah, right, because we have to do the cataloging and the processing usually. I mean,
Yeah.
we get a lot of processing done by the vendor, but I'm still one of those people that likes to look at it before it goes out.
Seems like it almost needs to be part of the acquisitions process that, you receive it, and then there's still one more step to, it's got to be processed, and then once it's done processed, it moves on to the regular collection rather than.
Well, that's the check-in, Christopher. I mean, when the item is ready to hit the shelf, the CERC staff checks it in and puts it on a shelving cart. And I agree that we should have, that the modification log should indicate that this item moved from a processing status to, no status or an available status.
Right, and that it needs to be a stable date.
Right. Well, if you're interested in the log development, just shoot me an email, because I think that's on our list for this year is to look into getting a development to make a log that just reflects not item changes, but item status changes.
That would be very useful to have that information.
Right.
The one issue with logs, if you're like our library, we keep our logs, we purge our logs, old logs, after a certain amount of time. And excuse me, if you're going back and looking at stuff older than that time, then that information is gone.
That's why I keep saying it needs to be a stable date.
It needs to be something part of the actual item record.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few things that would be nice that it would be part of that actual item record rather than just stuffed in a log somewhere, because when you do statistical stuff off of a particular item, if that's stuffed in another table or another, or you're just relying on logs for that kind of stuff, that stuff can disappear over time. Part of that record, it stays there.
So you're thinking about a 952 field.
Unfortunately, they've gone through all of the alphanumerics that are available in a Mark 9.
Yeah, that was my worry. It'd be hard to know where to put that.
Right.
What about
Given all the 950? Say that again. Sorry.
What about 583? It's kind of a undefined person,
Right.
like a lot of times, well, an institution I worked for before, they would put the cataloger's name and information in there. So you could
And
tell.
actually, we do that, but that's the date that it ended up being cataloged. And that's one of the things for this report that I'm currently fooling with is that 583, but it still might sit in processing for another week after it
And I'm not a cataloger, but aren't most of the mark fields mostly to do with the record, the bib record itself, and then the 900s are more of the personalized item?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it would have to be limited to the 900s.
Well, if anybody's got an idea of what field you would put that in, then let me know, because we can have that discussion as part of our development with the logs as well. But
that we don't keep, since we don't, for example, send our item holdings off to OCLC, we don't keep 900 fields for each and every item. And as we were talking before, this needs to be more than item information rather than a
Bibliographic.
bibliographic type sort of thing.
No, that makes sense.
Really, yeah.
what item data is currently kept in a field other than a 900 field, though?
We've got our vendor information that transfers back and forth.
Okay.
And yeah, I suppose that is, it is item based primarily, but we use it in acquisitions and for creation of mark records from vendors and then final records.
Okay.
Benjamin, is part of your concern that there's not enough 900 fields to?
Well, I just don't want to. It seems like it would be dangerous to start stepping out into a custom data storage format.
Right.
There's a mark field for it. Let's use the mark field for it.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're migrating to it, to a new ILS, now you've got data you can't do anything with.
Hey, we don't talk about migrating to new ILSs here, okay? You're in the wrong group here.
Right.
We want to keep people.
Yeah.
But
the only other thing would be to expand the item table to include not just the 952, but say another 900 field, because the 952 is basically limited to 36 columns.
Right.
That way. And pretty much they're all taken up. We had some of the columns in the 952 are designated for things that we would never use, so we repurposed them with the help of Bywater.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting thing to explore. Rhonda, have you opened a ticket on this?
This is Tricia.
I'm sorry.
I know it says Rhonda, but we share the laptop, and she had to step out.
Tricia, did you open a ticket at all, or put something out on the
particular report that I've been trying to work on? Yeah, I've got a ticket going out there, but just as we're having this conversation, exploring other options for status change dates and things like that. So this has been a good discussion as far as I'm concerned, and possibly even opening up storage of item information into another mark field,
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Right now it's 952 if they designated a 953 for other stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting, thoughts.
So, all right. For sake of time, we're going to bring up the next item on here. Nancy.
We skipped over Nancy's question in the chat over there.
Yeah, I was just bringing that up. She mentioned bug 13.715 items limit to items available. Nancy, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that bug has been out for 3 years, and it's got no movement. And I think it's a major flaw. If you want to limit by items that are available, if something is checked out on the record, it's not going to show up in that group of items. So it's something that definitely needs to be fixed, and it doesn't look like it's going to get fixed. So I thought maybe as a group, we might be able to push or do something. I don't know.
It looks like there's only 8 people that have shown interest in it. So yeah, I definitely, if so, it says that if
you can still
multiple
get
items if one item's not available, but others are. If you limit to items available, eliminating the ones that have
an item checked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can get results, but they're not correct results. I mean, it leaves out a lot of stuff. No, right.
Yes,
And I have a branch, we hid that, and I had a branch that flipped out because they were using it. Well, they didn't know that they were only using part of it.
Yes, I agree with Nancy. We've had ongoing discussion here with the children's librarian in particular, who would like to see that functionality work.
It seems to me it's basic. I don't know.
I didn't know that it was a flaw. Whenever I use that in the, this is just in the OPAC, right?
No,
Yeah.
It's in the staff client also.
Oh, okay, all right. I that's my children's librarian uses it in the OPAC, so that's all I was familiar with.
Well, I just changed something on the status for it. I've included myself in it, and you want to include yourself in it to generate some popularity with it. You can, but I just changed the importance on it because it was marked as an enhancement, and that sounds like a bug, more of a bug than an enhancement.
Right.
So I just changed it to it. I would consider that a major bug, so I set it to major instead. So maybe that'll help cause some attention.
For those of us that are Bywater customers, if we all test this and make sure that it's on our system, and then if we all complain, that would probably make some movement on it too.
Yes.
And if anybody else that's here checks their system and they've got it, if they were to say to go to bug 13715 and say, yes, somebody ought to fix this, that might actually get some significant movement on it.
Well, yeah, regardless of being a Bywater customer or not, if you can test it and see if it's a problem, go to your support vendor, whoever that is, and let them know, and speak up on this bug, like 13715. Make sure that you include yourself on the CC, if at the very least, but add comments to it. That will generate attention to it more.
Has anybody gotten a quote on what it would cost to fix it? To fund the fix?
You have to check with the person that filed it, and I probably doubt it looks like it might be somebody. Yeah,
I'll volunteer to pursue that.
Yeah, because awesome. I mean, we certainly would be willing to put in something to crowdfund it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll do that.
Yeah, one of the last comments Catherine actually mentioned, she said, I agree that the availability filter is problematic, but I am not sure someone is willing to invest time in this. You might want to consider funding a fix. So. All right. I'm not seeing anything in the chat about other issues. I wanted to bring up one thing, and if there's nothing else, then we can move on. But I wanted to mention something that I had noticed. I did file a bug. I don't have the bug in front of me at the moment. I don't want to take up time looking for it, but I did notice, and this isn't going to affect everybody, but George, I know it may affect you at some point. It could affect anybody that is using smart slips, and what I mean by that is there's some logic in the slips that do certain things based on content. We have our hold slips print differently, whether it's a hold that's local or a hold that's going out to another library, because it doesn't hit the transfer slip if it's a hold going to another library. It actually uses the hold slips, and so we modify our slips to look differently based on that. One of the things that I have discovered, because we just did an update to our slips, we added per one of our libraries, we added the functionality that if it was a patron that's in the homebound category, that if there's a hold for it, it wouldn't print the usual hold slip. It would print the fact that it's a homebound patron and print their information on it, so that they know to set those aside for whoever's handling the homebound patrons. So that's one of the functionalities that we did. But in that, I had found that when you're dealing with logic in your slips, if there is a piece of information that isn't there, it will skip all the logic basically in there, it's JavaScript. And I found that we have had recently added patrons' abilities to do self-registration. And with their self-registration, you can't check anything out while you're still in that self-registration category, but you can hold. And when you place holds, those holds can get triggered. And when you trigger those holds, if you're referencing a barcode that isn't there, it's going to skip that logic. And so it introduced a new element that we had to add some more logic to it. It's kind of a bug, but it would be nice that there was something more built into Koha to deal with these situations. But for the time being, we had to kind of say, okay, I'm gonna check the variable that grabs that barcode information. If it's blank, I'm going to assign it this temporary value so the logic doesn't break. So it was an interesting scenario, not necessarily something broken in Koha, but it's a new element with self-registration and holds that we hadn't had to deal with before.
Our old system automatically generated a temporary barcode for self-registration patrons.
Can you make those fields required?
Different that it was obvious it was a self-registration barcode.
And I don't know that I know that Koha can assign barcodes, but I don't know that you can specifically limit it to like self-registration.
Right.
So.
But that's not the totality of the problem with the smart slips.
Mm-hmm. But I do enjoy the smart slips. I'll sure say that.
Yeah, I don't. What is smart slips? I'll email you.
I know that in our system, when somebody does a temporary registration, do an initial registration online, self-registration, I usually just take their first name, second, or last name, barcode, or at least, or is that, never mind, maybe that's the user. No, it doesn't do a barcode, I'm sorry, never mind.
Yeah.
What's the proposed solution, Christopher? Like, how would you see this working?
Well, like Tricia said, maybe have, if you're doing self-registration, either there be some sort of flag for holds, or setting for holds when holds are triggered, that it have either its own slip or for the self-registered patrons, or like I said, we work around it, but not everybody's going to be savvy enough to catch those kinds of things. Maybe a setting in there for the self-registration to assign a temporary code, so that it doesn't break any kind of logic. I know that technically, Koha doesn't even endorse logic in the slips, but I mean logic can be used in the slips. You can use JavaScript in the slips. And it really makes the slips more robust and flexible.
The reason I bring it up though is we have actually logic that executes things if certain fields are blank. So
Right.
if this field doesn't earn anything, then do this. And so that's why I'm wondering if you're proposing sending dummy data to not break your slips, could you potentially break somebody else's logic?
It's very possible, but again, like I said, not everybody is savvy to that. I mean, that's one of the trickier things to debug in the slips is, when a field isn't being populated, you have to kind of figure out, oh, okay, well, this is what's breaking it, and this is why. So, not everybody's at the same place technically to figure those things out. We can go grab somebody's enhanced slips off of the library and plug it in, but unless they know how to debug those issues for their particular environment, it makes it a little tricky. So, my solution isn't necessarily, we add this preference and fill it in, because, like you said, it will break something. But we do need to brainstorm about it and in the community and figure out if there's a simpler way to deal with it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I'd need to see more details on the situation. I mean, if you're customizing slips, then I think there's something incumbent on you that you know what you're doing to some extent. And so making the system bail you out, I feel like, could potentially create its own other set of problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anytime you customize, you sort of paint yourself into a corner because it's not standardized.
Right.
That's what I've learned in cataloging.
However, because we are a community sharing information and we put these things out there, when we put these things out there, we need to be either ready to, answer those kinds of questions, and be a support when somebody grabs the code and it doesn't work, or, like you said, when you grab this code, you kind of have to know what you're doing. Not everybody knows what they're doing necessarily. When they grab some jQuery or the SQLs, so it's possible somebody can grab something, stick it in there, and not understand why it's not working.
Right.
Totally possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times in Valnet I got questions about the third-party self-check software that you made some modifications on at CIN. Like, Koha doesn't work. Well, it's not Koha. It's the third-party SIP-connected device that you're using that isn't working.
Yeah.
Part of that is, in that particular instance, is making the SIP more robust to be able to parse different fields of information.
Yeah. So even then with SIP, we're talking about something that is a standard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at my blog post about how to introduce this control logic into the slips, and I don't have anything here that would deal with with an empty barcode field. So at least I don't think I do. I'm going to have to test it now. And that'll be fun. I actually look forward to that.
The only reason I was able to debug that too is because back when I had first developed our slips, I was putting out last names on the whole slips. We have a self hold shelf, and we're putting last names and first initial and last initial, and I had to parse information out of the first name, and well, not every account has a first name, because you have some that are representative of libraries, or an entity rather than an actual person, and only one of the fields is used. The surname field is used, and so you had blank fields, and the slips would come out all wonky when we ran into an entity that put a hold on something. So that's where I figured that out, and fortunately I was able to remember enough to do the barcode, check the barcode on that situation. So, all right, well, we are short on time here, and I wanted to just quickly go over, if I can find my chat. No, it's not my chat. Sorry, wrong browser. Agenda. Committee reports real quick. George, is there anything from the fundraising committee that you needed to discuss?
We haven't met since the last, we didn't meet over the holidays, so our next meeting is coming up, and I was just looking on my calendar to see when that's scheduled, because Vicki is in that committee and she had a question about it. And I know we set up a time, and I don't see it on my calendar, so I will double check and make sure that everybody on that committee knows when that meeting is.
Okay. You'll post that out on the list?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Finance committee. John, anything to discuss quickly?
Just quickly, what I will be doing now, we'll be giving more formal reports quarterly, but the bylaws do say we have to have a financial report every month. Look in the agenda for any given meeting. I'm going to have a small report prepared and have Jason link to that report. People can look at that report before the meeting and then ask questions about it during the finance committee time. And then, like I said earlier, February, May, August, and November, there will actually be a formal report that'll talk about quarterly activity.
And I would like to encourage anybody, when we send out information, if we send out information, if you have questions about something, if something doesn't look right, or you want some more clarity on something, please, by all means, contact us prior to the meeting. I don't want to consume the general meetings with questions about things that could have been brought up when things were published for everybody. I want to handle all that technical business prior to that. So if we can do that, we have more time, like we did today, for these discussions and bugs and issues and things of that nature. All right, George, conference committee.
I organized a conference committee and got in touch with Bywater, and with I think I sent the email to the people at Bywater about what can we do. And we haven't had an actual committee meeting. We haven't really done anything yet. Okay. I should probably email.
Well, I noticed an announcement went out that said the meeting was going to take place in conjunction with the international conference in Portland, but that was all.
You can add customizing slips to your agenda conference.
I did a presentation about it at the last one.
I think I missed that one.
Well, it was like the best one, and there was, free gifts at the end. Everybody got a car that attended. It was like my version of Oprah.
Get a car.
Well, clearly you need an encore, and this time you need even bigger, flashier cars.
Wow, George, I'm going to all your presentations from now on.
So am I.
Car or none, it was a good presentation though, and the blog you set up was also really useful.
I just posted a link to that blog post for you, Trish.
Right.
But keep in mind that it doesn't include anything about what to do if there's a blank barcode number. So
Well, it will next time.
Yeah, I'll look at updating it right when I'm done with everything else on my to-do list.
Yeah.
George, I'm assuming that once you hear from Bywater, that you'll set a date for
Yeah.
meet. Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
John, do you have an upcoming meeting for your finance committee?
We don't really, we haven't had a formal meeting in a while. Mostly, I've been working on documentation as we finish up the four things I listed that we needed to do to have our financial house in order. 4 of those, actually 3 of them are done. The 4th is the financial institution migration, which doesn't really need to have a discussion anymore because I've made the recommendation. The 5th one is the compliance and reporting calendar. That's the last thing I really have to write right now. And what I've been doing is writing these things, sending them to the finance committee for review. Upon their review, making any changes or incorporating any changes that they'd like, then I present them to the board at the board meeting. So we haven't really had a formal meeting in a while, just because that's how we've been handling the work.
All right. Okay. So Jason, I show that we need to, there's some follow-up work that we need to do with Michael to get the website launched and membership underway, and we'll send out notices when that happens. And I think that's the only action item that I'm seeing on there at this time. Did I miss anything?
Other things just on the to-do list, I guess George is gonna, by the end of the week, have the listserv moved over.
Yes.
Let's see.
And we're all gonna send angry emails to George if it doesn't happen.
Yes, that's.
If I have to stay up till 2 o'clock, I swear to God, everything this last month has been impossible to do.
No,
if I have to
right.
stay up till the middle of the night on Friday.
I understand.
I think that's all I've got.
All right.
After that, George, you want to come up, clean out my basement?
No.
The last part of moving to a new house.
If you come over and clean out my garage.
Oh.
Mm. All right, guys. I think that's it. Next meeting, Jason.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure.
George, if you need any help, I see you have people on the conference committee, but if you need any help, I'd be interested. Once you get going, if you find that you need another hand, let me know.
Thank you, Christopher. All right,
Yeah, that'd
Jason.
be great.
Next meeting.
Okay, so our next board meeting, if anybody is interested in attending, because as Christopher said, those are open to all. And if you want the nitty-gritty, you can come to those. Our next board meeting is Wednesday, February 7th at 10:30 Central Time. So same time as these meetings, but a week before. And then our next general meeting is on Valentine's Day, February 14th at 10:30.
Yeah, this is going to be a weird year for religious-oriented people because Ash Wednesday is also on Valentine's Day and Easter is on April Fool's Day. And it's just all very odd.
Yeah. So everybody wear pink at the next general meeting.
Okay. I'll make a note of that.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you going over just a little bit of time, and we'll see you next month.
Okay.
All right,
Bye,
see you later.
everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.